Today I'm reviewing the 2004 independent psychological sci-fi film Primer, which I'd never heard of before until a few days ago when it was recommended to me by a Subscribestar supporter. Incidentally, if you'd like to support my work and private message me, you can do so via the link below to my Subscribestar page. Now, I'm very grateful for this recommendation because this was a movie I very much enjoyed. If you like dry, cerebral sci-fi that really forces you to think, if you like puzzle box movies that you have to watch several times over in order to fully understand the complexity and detail of the plot, this is definitely a film for you. The plot is intricate and can be difficult to follow upon first viewing, but if you give it a chance, you can see it has been meticulously thought out and that there is a clear logical flow to the narrative. If you appreciate the unorthodox story structure of something like Memento, then you'll enjoy this film. It was directed, written, and produced by Shane Carruth, who also stars as the main character, Aaron, and he even composed the music. Very talented indeed. And despite being made on a budget of just $7,000, the film doesn't look cheap at all. It's brilliantly shot. The cinematography is excellent. There's only one or two scenes at night where the film looks a bit underexposed, though that could have also been a stylistic choice. The dialogue is also superb, and this is where the film excels. Shane Carruth holds an undergraduate degree in mathematics, and he used to develop flight simulation software, and he actually studied physics in order to ensure that the technical dialogue in the film would sound genuine. He made the conscious decision to not dumb down the dialogue with simplified explanations or exposition. This is a technical film. I think anyone who appreciates uncompromising, thought-provoking science fiction will like this movie, especially if you're from a mathematics, science, or engineering background. If you're someone who likes scientific thought experiments and what-ifs, this is for you. And what's extraordinary and speaks volumes of modern Hollywood is that here we have a film made for the cost of a second-hand car, $7,000, and this is a very unique and highly intellectual and creative film. And yet, the big budget blockbusters of today can't hold a candle to it in terms of depth, ingenuity, or creativity. In addition, the dialogue and acting performances are extremely down-to-earth and grounded. It doesn't even feel like anyone is actually acting because everyone is so real. Their speech is very naturalistic. They talk over each other sometimes, they communicate in a way that doesn't feel scripted. If you told me this film was mumblecore or improvised, I would believe you, but it can't be because the technical information and jargon has to be spot on, so huge credit to the cast for delivering performances that are believable and authentic. Spoilers ahead for Primer. If you haven't seen it, please stop this video, go and watch it now, and then come back to this review. So for the first 15 minutes of the movie, I didn't really fully understand what was happening, and that's fine. I felt like I was watching a sort of fly-on-the-wall type documentary. 4 guys working on some machine trying to build a device that could reduce the electromagnetic weight or mass of objects, something to do with reducing gravity. Now, these entrepreneurs are experimenting out of a garage with their research projects, trying to develop some useful invention that they could bring to market and sell to make money out of. Now, the core of the story is the relationship between 2 friends, Aaron and Abe. Now, I'm going to gloss over some details here, but suffice to say, the 2 men begin to notice some irregularities with their machine that they cannot account for. Weird stuff. They're dealing with a real frontier science project, so strange anomalies are going to happen. And one day, Abe comes to Arthur and explains to him, using practical evidence, that what's happened is that they have accidentally stumbled upon a major discovery. The machine is capable of creating a causal loop. If you turn the machine on, objects placed inside it can be essentially transported back in time to the point that the machine was switched on. So Abe demonstrates this to Aaron by showing him. They scale the experiment up so that a person can be sent back in time. They make use of storage containers, bringing the machine with them, and they also bring oxygen cylinders because they're obviously locking themselves away in a small room. The machine sends them back 6 hours into the past. While there, they immediately travel to a hotel and lock themselves away from the rest of the world. Now, during this time, the time traveler and his past double exist in the world simultaneously. So the purpose of the stay at the hotel is to prevent them from interfering with the world in any way. Later that day, when the coast is clear, they reuse the box. Now, the box is what I will use to describe the machine. And they travel back to the start of the day armed with their stock market knowledge, and they make some lucrative trades. Now, it's at this point I was thinking, why bother with the stock market? Just play the lottery once after you get the lottery numbers. It would have simplified everything. Anyway, there are other reasons why the two men want to time travel, including to try to stop a violent incident at a party involving Aaron's girlfriend's ex-partner, and also to get revenge on an unseen character and past rival. Both events have significant impacts upon the story. Now, in Back to the Future 2, we saw a very practical and fairly simple demonstration of the dangers of time travel. The DeLorean falls into the wrong hands, Old Man Biff, and he goes back in time and gives his past self knowledge of the future in the form of sports results. And then Hill Valley in 1985 is drastically changed for the worse. But in Primer, we are given more subtle and unnerving examples of how dangerous time travel can be. For example, the two men start to become exhausted due to living extra long 36-hour days from using the machine, and this begins to impact upon their decision-making. They also notice other disturbing side effects, such as bleeding from the ears, and their handwriting is beginning to deteriorate. Now, this is possibly a cognitive or neurological decline from prolonged use of the box, but could also be because they both placed their hands in the prototype machine earlier in the film. Now, one theory is that this knocked their hands out of phase with their brains, so the signal from their brain to their hand is slower. This could therefore be affecting their fine motor skills. Now, there is a real hypothetical thought experiment moment in the movie that I really appreciated. Aaron accidentally brings his phone back in time with him, and his phone rings. He answers it, and this is a problem because it means they've now broken symmetry. Now, both Abe and Aaron panic about this, wondering what the consequences could be and how such a thing even works. I mean, you have two identical phones, two identical SIM cards with the same phone numbers. So when the phone number is dialed by someone, which phone does the network choose to route the call to? Aaron presumes it's the closest one to the cell tower, but he's unsure. Another moment in the film that also demonstrates the catastrophic consequences of time travel happens when they find they cannot account for the unexplained appearance of another character in the past, a man named Thomas Granger. He's the father of Abe's love interest. They've been trying to get Thomas to invest in their projects. One night at 2 a.m, they notice he's sitting in a truck outside their house with about 3 days of beard growth. Now that's very strange because Aaron had seen him earlier that day clean-shaven. He chases them, seemingly angry about something, and he collapses later into a coma. And what the heck was all that about? Despite only Abe and Aaron knowing about the box time machine and how to use it, somehow Granger found out, figured out how to use it, and travelled back in time, and all of this happened off-screen. How did any of that happen? I found this to be the most exciting and tantalizing mystery in the film. Abe and Aaron are understandably hugely disturbed by this turn of events and its implications. They cannot account for this. Neither of them had told Granger about the machine. How did he know about it? Granger slipped into a coma, presumably from not taking the necessary precautions in using the box. So he can't explain to them how he knew. But what's going on here? They decide that whatever future event or scenario led to this outcome, it's unknowable to them. In many respects, they are now trapped in their own live time travel experiment, and it's begun to get out of hand. With symmetry broken and with multiple versions of themselves occupying the same point in time on different days, there is no way of knowing how this could have happened. Incidentally, the entire time travel experiment takes place across just 4 days. There are various plausible explanations for how Granger arrived in the past, but that's fodder for comment sections and forums, I suspect. Regardless, the timeline is being seriously messed with. Now, I am glossing over a lot of timey-wimey details here because I'm trying to keep this all somewhat accessible to people watching this review who've never seen the film before. There are several scenes in the film that seem at times incoherent, at least in that moment, as in almost out of place in the narrative. This is because sections of the film are not presented to us in chronological order, but make sense later upon further analysis or subsequent viewings. Watching the film a few times, you begin to decode more of the plot and realize that at different points in the movie, even Abe and Aaron are slightly out of sync with each other. When Abe finally decides enough is enough, time travel is just too dangerous, we learn that he has created a failsafe box that has been running all the way back on Monday prior to the first time he had ever time traveled. So he uses this failsafe box to go back in time to convince Aaron to never use it. His intention is to prevent all of the time travel from occurring in the first place. But he learns that a future version of Aaron has gotten there ahead of him after discovering Abe's failsafe some time ago and modifying it. He makes recordings of conversations and gives them to his past self to listen to. We learn that Aaron was way ahead of Abe. He merely pretended to be surprised by Abe's revelations of time travel. This changes the entire outlook of the film. Abe realizes this. Exhausted and overwhelmed, he collapses. Now, both characters themselves are, like I say, very believable, very realistic. But as scientifically minded guys, they're very black and white in their thinking. They approach this experiment from a cold, clinical, and impartial perspective, but the problem is that they are the subjects in the experiment, and they cannot foresee the toll it takes upon them physically and psychologically, and the damage it begins to exert upon their friendship, to say nothing of the chaos that results from the paradoxes and causality problems that they create. Abe shows himself to be the more responsible of the two men, and he's the one who takes action to use the failsafe, go back in time, and try to stop it all from happening in the first place. But Aaron was a step ahead of him, like I say, proving that their friendship was never fully based on trust or shared values. It was based on a desire to make money from their inventions, of course, and that's about it. I mean, it's Abe who seems to be the one who's more concerned for Aaron's well-being and the well-being of Aaron's family than Aaron is. But Abe ends up having to take a drastic step to stitch time back together after using the failsafe. He even gasses his former self in order to live his double's life and leaves him in a closet. But upon further reflection, Aaron comes across as a very selfish guy, possibly even somewhat Machiavellian. You can hear the coldness in his voice during the recordings, and the lengths he's willing to go to keep time traveling are pretty extreme. Sure, Abe has to drug his past self to keep him asleep, but Aaron's treatment of his past self is just cruel, drugging him and locking him away in the attic. And then later there's another physical altercation between two Aarons. His girlfriend thinks there's rats up in the attic because Aaron, or a past version of him, is trying to get out. Aaron plans to leave and wants Abe to come with him, to go somewhere and use their knowledge of the future to make money. He doesn't seem that concerned with losing touch with his family, and his attitude towards his old life and Abe's protests and concerns, it's all very cynical and self-serving. Both men are in a difficult position now. I mean, virtually an impossible one. They can't access their money that belongs to their doubles, or their passports for that matter. They'll need new identities, and they're essentially exiles in time. Abe's plan by the end of the film is to try to sabotage past Aaron's attempts to build a successful box, while the film concludes with future Aaron, now in the past, attempting to build what could be a huge hangar full of boxes. This would allow him to continuously and recklessly and irresponsibly meddle with time. Primer isn't a horror movie, but there is something quite terrifying about the causal forces of nature and reality that they're messing with and how it destroys not only their friendship, but their lives in ways they cannot fully understand. I found the film not so much emotionally draining, but mentally draining in a way. It's a heavy film, and even what I've described here is merely my interpretation of events. I could easily be wrong about certain plot points here and there, but I'm satisfied that for the most part, I've got a reasonable handle on the movie, if only a partially complete one. I like these kinds of puzzle box movies that leave plenty of room for audience theories and speculation and keep you thinking and wondering for days afterwards, which is more than I can say for the Marvels. There are some great YouTube videos breaking down the plot in detail, so check those out. For now, this review serves as a primer for Primer. I hope you'll check it out and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Intelligent, believable time travel stories haven't been done all that often. This is certainly one of them that I'm happy to recommend. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for the Subscribe Star supporter who recommended this movie. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.